Eleanor Appleton felt her mother's fingernails digging into her shoulders. The 6-year-old girl did not understand why Shannon Appleton was gripping her so tightly, or why her hands trembled against Eleanor's collarbone. The interior of their family's cabin in the Colorado Territory smelled like unwashed bodies and desperation. 3 strangers stood near the doorway, their leather coats buttoned to their throats despite the summer heat outside. Shannon's breathing came in short, uneven bursts. Eleanor felt the rhythm of it against her back. Her father, Oscar Appleton, lay in the next room. He had stopped moving 2 hours ago. Eleanor had heard the final breath leave his lungs while she sat pressed against the wall, counting the knots in the wooden planks. "The agreement is final," one of the strangers said. His voice carried no emotion. He wore a silver ring on his left hand that caught the lamplight. "The child crosses with us tonight. You receive the supplies now." Eleanor watched her mother's face. Shannon's eyes were red but dry. She had cried earlier, before the strangers arrived. Now her expression showed nothing except a terrible blankness that frightened Eleanor more than tears would have. "She will live if you take her," Shannon said. Her voice cracked on the word live. The stranger nodded once. He gestured to his companion, who placed a canvas sack on the floor, dried venison, hardtack biscuits, 2 sealed water containers. A small pouch that clinked with the sound of coins. Eleanor stared at the food. Her stomach was cramped. She had not eaten in 3 days. Shannon's grip loosened. Eleanor felt the moment her mother's decision solidified. It happened in the space between one heartbeat and the next. The fingernails withdrew from her shoulders. "We will not see her again," Shannon whispered. "No," the stranger confirmed. "You will not." Eleanor's thoughts scattered like startled birds. She tried to grab onto one clear idea, but they all flew away from her. They were trading her. Her parents were choosing food over her. The understanding hit her chest like a physical blow. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Shannon turned Eleanor around to face her. She knelt down until their eyes were level. Her hands cupped Eleanor's face with a gentleness that contradicted everything happening around them. "You will survive this," Shannon said. Each word came out deliberate and measured. "Your father said you were special. He told me before he died. You will survive." Eleanor did not believe her. The words felt like lies wrapped in desperation. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. Instead, she stood frozen while her mother pressed a kiss to her forehead. The stranger with the silver ring stepped forward. He extended one gloved hand toward Eleanor. "Come with me now," he said. Eleanor looked at her mother one last time. Shannon had already turned away. Her shoulders shook, but she made no sound. The stranger's hand closed around Eleanor's wrist. His grip was firm but not painful. He pulled her toward the door. Eleanor stumbled. Her legs did not want to work properly. The stranger kept walking, dragging her along when she could not keep pace. She twisted her head to look back. Shannon stood with her back to the doorway, both hands pressed over her mouth. Outside, 3 horses waited. The night air felt cold against Eleanor's face. She realized she was crying only when the wind made the tears sting. The stranger lifted her onto the back of the middle horse. Another man climbed up behind her. "Do not fall," the man said. Eleanor gripped the saddle horn with both hands. Her knuckles turned white. The horses began to move. She watched her family's cabin grow smaller behind them. A single lamp burned in the window. Then the trees swallowed the light and everything disappeared into darkness. They rode through the night without stopping. Eleanor's body ached from the constant motion. She thought about her father lying dead in the next room. She thought about the food her mother had chosen instead of keeping her. The thoughts ran in circles, each one sharper than the last. The stranger behind her said nothing. His presence felt like stone. Eleanor wondered if he even registered her as human or if she was simply cargo to be delivered. By dawn, they had traveled 20 miles into territory Eleanor did not recognize. The trees changed from pine to something broader. The air smelled different. Everything felt wrong. Eleanor made a decision somewhere around sunrise. She would not speak to these men. She would not ask where they were taking her. She would not beg to go home. Whatever happened next, she would face it with her mouth shut and her eyes open. The stranger seemed to sense her resolution. He shifted in the saddle. "Eat this," he said, handing her a piece of dried meat. Eleanor took it but did not eat. She held it in her fist until her palm grew sweaty and the meat turned soft. Only when her stomach cramped hard enough to make her gasp did she finally put it in her mouth. The transaction was complete. Eleanor Appleton belonged to the strangers now. The fortress appeared on the third day. Eleanor saw it first as a dark shape against the mountains, then as something massive and deliberate. Stone walls rose 40 feet high. Watchtowers marked each corner. The strangers urged their horses faster as they approached. Eleanor's body hurt everywhere. Her thighs were raw from 3 days on horseback. Her stomach had stopped demanding food and simply ached. She kept her eyes on the fortress because looking at it was easier than thinking about what waited inside. The gates opened without anyone calling out. The strangers rode through into a courtyard paved with smooth, gray stone. Eleanor had never seen stone laid so perfectly. Each piece fits against the next without gaps. The precision of it struck her as unnatural. People moved through the courtyard with purpose. They did not run. They did not shout. Everyone walked at the same measured pace, their boots hitting the stone in a rhythm that sounded almost military. Eleanor watched them and felt her chest tighten. These people were nothing like her father's wolf pack. The wolves had been loud and chaotic and warm. These strangers moved like weapons. The man behind her dismounted. He reached up and lifted Eleanor down. Her legs buckled when her feet touched the ground. She grabbed at the horse's saddle to stay upright. "Walk," the man said. Eleanor forced her legs to work. She followed him across the courtyard toward a heavy wooden door. It opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the doorway. She wore dark gray clothing that covered her from neck to wrists to ankles. Her face showed no expression. "This is the child?" the woman asked. "Yes." The woman studied Eleanor with eyes that missed nothing. Eleanor stared back. She would not look away first. She had decided that much. "She needs washing," the woman said, "and feeding." "She needs an inspection," the man corrected. Henry Luxford requested a personal examination. The woman nodded once. She gestured for Eleanor to follow her inside. Eleanor hesitated. The man's hand touched her back, pushing her forward. She stumbled through the doorway into a corridor lit by lamps that burned without smoke. The woman led her through passages that turned and climbed. Eleanor tried to remember the route but gave up after the fourth turn. Everything looked identical. Stone walls. Wooden doors, lamps every 10 feet, no windows. They stopped at a door that looked like every other door. The woman pushed it open. "Wait here," she said. "Do not leave this room." Eleanor walked inside. The door closed behind her. She heard a lock turn. The room held a bed, a chair, and a small table. A basin of water sat on the table. Eleanor's reflection wavered on the water's surface. She looked terrible. Her face was streaked with dirt. Her dark hair hung in tangles. Her dress was torn at the hem. She sat on the floor instead of the bed. The stone felt cold against her legs. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. Her thoughts moved in angry circles. They had sold her to these people. They had chosen food. The memory of her mother's hands shaking would not leave her alone. Eleanor pressed her forehead against her knees and tried to make her mind go blank. Time passed. She did not know how much. Eventually, the door opened again. A man entered. He was tall, with silver threading through his dark hair. His eyes were the color of amber. He moved with absolute certainty, each step deliberate. Eleanor recognized power when she saw it. This man commanded everything around him. "Stand up," he said. Eleanor stayed on the floor. She met his eyes and did not move. The man's expression did not change. He walked closer and crouched down until they were eye level. "I am Henry Luxford," he said. "I rule this territory. You were brought here under contract. Do you understand what that means?" Eleanor said nothing. Henry studied her face. His gaze felt like pressure against her skin. She wanted to look away but refused to give him the satisfaction. "You expected chains," Henry said. "It was not a question. You expected to be treated as property." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "This child does not belong in chains," Henry said, speaking to someone behind him. Eleanor had not noticed the second person enter. "She belongs in observation." "Observation for what purpose?" a younger male voice asked. Henry stood. He extended one hand toward Eleanor. She looked at it like it might bite her. "Take my hand," Henry said. "I will not force you, but if you wish to eat tonight, you will take it." Eleanor's stomach cramped at the mention of food. She hated herself for the weakness, but she reached up and placed her small hand in his. Henry pulled her to her feet with careful control. He turned her toward the lamp. His fingers tilted her chin up. Eleanor tried to jerk away, but his grip held firm without hurting. "Look at her eyes," Henry said to his companion. "The pupils contract differently, and her skin temperature runs higher than any wolf child I have examined." "She shows signs?" the younger voice asked. "She shows possibility," Henry corrected, "which makes her valuable beyond the original contract terms." Eleanor's thoughts spun. She did not understand what they were discussing. She tried to pull away again. This time, Henry released her. "Feed her," Henry instructed. "Give her clean clothing. Post guards outside her door, but do not restrain her." "You want her protected?" the companion asked. "I want her alive and healthy," Henry said. "Whatever blood runs in her veins, it did not come from common wolf lineage." He turned and left the room. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. Eleanor stood in the center of the room, her heart hammering. They were not going to chain her. They were not going to hurt her. The realization felt wrong somehow. She had prepared herself for cruelty. Protection confused her more than violence would have. Food arrived an hour later. Bread, roasted meat, vegetables she did not recognize. The woman who brought it set the tray down and left without speaking. Eleanor approached the food slowly. She picked up a piece of bread and smelled it. It smelled like safety, like warmth, like everything her family had not been able to provide. She ate until her stomach hurt. Then she climbed onto the bed and pulled the blanket over herself. Sleep came quickly, dragging her down into darkness where her mother's shaking hands could not follow. Eleanor woke to voices outside her door. Morning light came through a high window she had not noticed the night before. The window was narrow, barely 6 inches wide, but it let in enough sun to warm the stone floor. She sat up. Her body ached less than it had yesterday. The food had helped. She touched her stomach and felt something unfamiliar settle there. Not quite hope. More like the absence of immediate despair. The door opened. 2 women entered, both wearing the same gray clothing Eleanor had seen throughout the fortress. One carried a bundle of fabric. The other held a wooden box. "You will bathe," the first woman said. "Then dress in these clothes." Eleanor did not argue. She let them lead her down the corridor to a bathing room where steam rose from a large stone basin. The water felt almost too hot when she climbed in, but she did not complain. She scrubbed her skin until it turned pink. The women dressed her in clothing similar to their own. The fabric felt rough but clean. They combed her hair with careful, methodical strokes. One of them braided it down her back. "Henry Luxford wants you in the records room," the second woman said. They led her through more corridors. Eleanor tried again to memorize the route. She counted doors and turns. 15 doors on the left, 11 on the right. 3 staircases going up. The fortress was enormous. The records room held floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with leather-bound books. A large table dominated the center of the space. 3 men stood around it, including Henry Luxford. Eleanor recognized his amber eyes immediately. "Come here," Henry said. Eleanor walked to the table. The men had spread several old documents across the surface. The paper looked yellowed with age. Strange symbols marked the margins. "What do you know about your mother's family?" Henry asked. Eleanor frowned. "Nothing." "Your mother never spoke of her lineage?" "No." Henry's expression hardened slightly. He gestured to one of the other men. "Show her," he said. The man unrolled another document. This one showed names connected by lines. A family tree. Eleanor recognized her mother's name near the bottom. Shannon Rowley, before she had married Oscar Appleton. "Your mother came from the Rowley line," Henry said. "Do you know what that means?" Eleanor shook her head. "The Rowley bloodline traces back 300 years to a union that should never have occurred," Henry continued. "A dragon lord named Evan Rowley took a wolf woman as his mate. Their children were hunted and killed. The bloodline was supposed to have died out completely." Eleanor's thoughts stuttered. Dragon lord. The words made no sense. She knew about wolf shifters. Her father had been one. But dragons were stories, myths, things that did not exist in the real world. "You do not believe me," Henry observed. He held out his right hand, palm up. Eleanor watched as his fingernails lengthened into curved black claws. Scales rippled across his skin, spreading from his wrist to his elbow before disappearing again. The transformation took less than 3 seconds. Her mouth went dry. She took a step backward. "We are real," Henry said. "And based on the records we have uncovered, your mother carried dormant dragon blood through the Rowley line, which means you carry it as well." "I am a wolf," Eleanor said. The words came out defensive and sharp. "You are both," Henry corrected. "Or potentially both. The blood has been diluted across generations, but certain signs remain. Your elevated body temperature. The way your eyes react to light. The fact that you touched the heated lamp last night without burning yourself." Eleanor looked at her hands. She remembered reaching out to steady herself against the lamp. The metal had been hot, but she had not pulled away. She had thought she was simply too exhausted to feel pain properly. "My father would have known," she said. "Your father knew," Henry replied. "Why do you think he made the trade arrangement? He was dying. His pack had betrayed him. He knew the wolves would kill you if they discovered what you were. He sent you here because we are the only ones who might keep you alive." The words hit Eleanor like cold water. Her father had not sold her out of desperation. He had sent her away to save her life. The understanding shifted something fundamental in her chest. "They sold me because they knew," she whispered. "They sold you because they loved you," Henry said. "Keeping you would have meant watching you die." Eleanor sat down in the nearest chair. Her legs would not hold her anymore. The men around the table watched her with varying expressions. Henry's face showed something that might have been sympathy. The others looked cautious. "What happens now?" Eleanor asked. "Now we determine if the dragon blood will activate," Henry said. "If it does, you will be the first hybrid to survive past childhood in over 200 years. If it does not, you will remain under our protection as a wolf shifter with unusual traits. And if I try to leave, then you die," Henry said simply. "The wolves will hunt you for what you represent. Other dragon clans will kill you to prevent any dilution of pure bloodlines. You are safe only here." Eleanor absorbed this. She had nowhere to go, no family to return to, no pack that would accept her. The fortress was not a prison. It was the only place in the world where she could exist. "I understand," she said. Henry nodded. He rolled up the documents with careful precision. "You will begin training tomorrow," he said. "Physical conditioning, mental discipline, control exercises. You will learn to manage whatever abilities surface." "Who will train me?" "My son Connor will oversee your instruction," Henry said. "He is near your age and already showing exceptional control of his abilities. You will train together." Eleanor said nothing. She watched Henry and the other men file out of the room. When the door closed, she remained sitting at the table surrounded by books that documented bloodlines and betrayals and survival. Her parents had known what she was. They had chosen to save her in the only way possible. The anger she had carried for 3 days began to crack. Beneath it, something more complicated waited. Grief, understanding, a terrible gratitude that she did not want to acknowledge. She pressed her palms flat against the table. The wood felt solid beneath her hands. She was still alive, still breathing, still capable of moving forward. That would have to be enough. 9 years passed inside the Dragon Lord's fortress. Eleanor grew from a frightened 6-year-old into a young woman of 15 who understood discipline better than she understood comfort. Every morning began the same way. She woke before dawn, dressed in training clothes, and met Connor Luxford in the eastern courtyard. Connor was 17. He stood 6 feet tall with dark hair and the same amber eyes as his father. Where Henry Luxford commanded through authority, Connor led through precision. Every movement he made served a purpose. Nothing was wasted. Eleanor watched him demonstrate a defensive stance for the 4th time that morning. Her muscles burned from 2 hours of repetition. Sweat ran down her spine despite the cool autumn air. "Your weight distribution is still off," Connor said. He did not sound frustrated, just factual. "Shift back another inch." Eleanor adjusted her stance. She focused on the placement of her feet, the angle of her hips, the position of her shoulders. Connor circled her, examining every detail. "Better," he said. "Hold it for 2 minutes." Eleanor held the position. Her thighs began to shake after 30 seconds. She gritted her teeth and pushed through the discomfort. Connor stood 5 feet away, timing her with a pocket watch he kept in his training coat. The 2 minutes stretched into eternity. When Connor finally told her to release, Eleanor's legs nearly buckled. She caught herself and straightened before he could comment. "You have improved," Connor acknowledged. "Last month you could only hold for 90 seconds. Eleanor grabbed the water container from the courtyard bench. She drank deeply, using the motion to hide her satisfaction at his approval. Connor rarely offered praise. When he did, it meant something. "We need to discuss your heat tolerance," Connor said. He moved to the fire pit that burned in the center of the courtyard. "Come here." Eleanor approached the flames. Connor extended his bare hand toward the fire, holding it 6 inches above the burning wood. His skin did not redden or blister. "Dragon blood protects us from heat damage," he explained. "Your blood should offer similar protection, but you have been avoiding direct testing." "I have touched hot metal," Eleanor said. "Touching and enduring are different things," Connor replied. "Hold your hand above the flames like I am doing." Eleanor hesitated. The fire's heat washed over her face. She could feel the power of it, the hunger. Her wolf instincts screamed warnings about burning. But beneath that fear ran something else, a strange pull toward the flames, like recognition. She extended her hand. The heat intensified but did not hurt. She moved closer, matching Connor's position. The flames licked toward her skin but did not burn. Connor watched her carefully. His eyes tracked every reaction. "What do you feel?" he asked. "Warmth," Eleanor said. "But not pain. It feels almost comfortable." "That is dragon blood," Connor said. "Wolf shifters cannot endure direct flame contact. You can, which confirms Henry's theory about your dual nature." Eleanor pulled her hand back. She stared at her unmarked palm. For 9 years she had trained and studied and learned to control her wolf abilities, but the dragon side remained dormant. Theoretical, something discussed in record rooms but never manifested. "Why has it not emerged?" she asked. "The transformation. If I carry dragon blood, why can I only shift into wolf form?" Connor's expression shifted slightly. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for him. "Dragon transformation requires more than bloodline," he said. "It demands absolute emotional control. Dragons shift through will and discipline. Wolves shift through instinct and emotion. You have been trained in discipline for 9 years, but you still think like a wolf." "I think like a survivor," Eleanor corrected. "Yes," Connor agreed. "Which may be why the dragon blood remains locked. It will not emerge until you stop fighting yourself." Eleanor turned away from the fire. She walked to the courtyard edge and looked out over the fortress walls. The mountains beyond showed the first signs of winter snow. She had spent 9 years in this place. 9 years learning to be something she did not fully understand. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. Being what you are? Connor joined her at the wall. He stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Dragon blood ran hotter than wolf blood. I do not regret what I am, he said, but I sometimes regret what it costs. Eleanor glanced at him. What does it cost you? Choice, Connor said. Freedom to be careless. The luxury of acting without considering consequences 3 moves ahead. You sound like you envy wolves. I envy anyone who can feel without calculating, Connor admitted. Dragons live in their minds. Wolves live in their bodies. You carry both, which means you exist in constant tension. The observation was more personal than anything Connor had said to her in years. Eleanor studied his profile. He kept his gaze fixed on the mountains, his expression carefully neutral. You do not burn when you should, she said quietly, repeating something he had told her years ago during their first fire training. Connor's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but close. Neither do you, he replied. The moment stretched between them. Eleanor became aware of how close they were standing. 6 inches separated their shoulders. She could count his breaths. The awareness made something tighten in her chest. Connor stepped back first. The distance returned like a door closing. Enough for today, he said. Henry wants to see you in his study. Eleanor nodded. She walked toward the fortress entrance, feeling Connor's eyes follow her across the courtyard. Henry Luxford's study occupied the highest room in the eastern tower. Eleanor climbed the stairs with a steady rhythm. 9 years had given her intimate knowledge of every level, every passage, every hidden corner of the fortress. Henry stood at his desk reviewing documents when she entered. He looked up and gestured for her to sit. Connor reports you are progressing well, Henry said. I am learning, Eleanor replied. Learning and mastering are not the same. Henry observed. You have a wolf shift under control. Your physical conditioning exceeds most trained warriors, but the dragon blood remains dormant. Connor explained that it requires emotional control I have not achieved. Henry set down his papers. He studied her with the same intense focus he had used when she was 6 years old. The dragon blood will emerge when you stop being afraid of it, he said. You have spent 9 years proving you belong here. You have earned your place, but you still hold part of yourself separate, locked away. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I survived by keeping parts of myself separate. You survived by adapting, Henry corrected. Now you must integrate. The dragon and the wolf cannot remain divided. When they merge, you will transform into something neither species has seen before. And if I cannot merge them? Then you remain incomplete, Henry said. Powerful but limited. Half of what you could become. Eleanor absorbed this. 9 years of training, 9 years of discipline, and she was still holding back. The realization frustrated her. How do I stop being afraid? She asked. You embrace the fear and act anyway, Henry said. Connor can teach you technique, but courage comes from within. Eleanor left the study with Henry's words circling in her mind. She walked through empty corridors back to her quarters. The room that had been assigned to her 9 years ago had expanded as she grew. Now it held a proper bed, bookshelves, and a desk where she studied Dragon Clan histories. She sat at the desk and pulled out her journal. Writing helped organize her thoughts. She recorded the day's training, Connor's observations, Henry's advice. When she finished, she sat back and stared at her own handwriting. 9 years ago, her mother had handed her to strangers. Her father had died, believing it was the only way to save her. They had been right. She had survived. She had grown strong. But surviving was not the same as living, and strength without integration was just another form of imprisonment. Eleanor made a decision. Tomorrow she will push harder. She would stop protecting herself from the dragon blood and let it rise. Whatever happened, she would face it without flinching. The choice settled in her chest like a stone dropping into still water. 3 months after Eleanor made her decision, the transformation began. It started on a January morning so cold that frost covered the courtyard stones. Eleanor and Connor were running combat drills when the first spike of pain hit her spine. She stumbled mid-strike. Connor caught her arm before she fell. "What is wrong?" he asked. Eleanor could not answer. Heat flooded through her bloodstream like liquid fire. She gasped and pulled away from Connor's grip. Her skin felt too tight. Her bones ached with pressure building from the inside. "Eleanor," Connor's voice sharpened. "Talk to me." "Something is happening," she managed. The words came out strangled. She dropped to her knees on the frozen stone. Connor did not touch her again. He backed up 3 steps, giving her space. His hand moved to the signal bell mounted on the courtyard wall. "Do not," Eleanor said. "Do not call for help. You are in pain." "I am transforming," Eleanor corrected. She recognized it now. This was not sickness. This was an emergency. The dragon blood was finally waking up. Connor's expression shifted. He moved to block the courtyard entrance, preventing anyone else from entering. Then he returned his attention to Eleanor. "Let it come," he said. "Do not fight it." Eleanor tried to breathe through the pain. Every nerve ending in her body screamed. She felt her wolf rise in response to the distress, trying to protect her through familiar transformation. But something else rose with it, something bolder and fiercer and utterly foreign. Her spine arched, bones cracked and reformed. She screamed, unable to hold the sound back. Connor stayed motionless. He watched without interfering. His eyes tracked every change. Eleanor's hands hit the ground. Her fingers lengthened, then shortened, then lengthened again as 2 different forms fought for dominance. Fur sprouted along her arms and immediately burned away. Scales rippled across her ribs and vanished. Her body could not decide what it was becoming. The pain reached a crescendo. Eleanor's vision went white. She thought she might die right there in the courtyard. Then something inside her clicked into place. The wolf and the dragon stopped fighting. They merged. Eleanor's body settled into a form that was neither wolf nor dragon, but somehow both. She was larger than a wolf, but smaller than a full dragon. Her limbs carried both fur and scales. Her face elongated into a muzzle, but her eyes remained distinctly her own. Wings tried to sprout from her shoulder blades, but only managed partial formation before subsiding. She stayed on all 4s, panting. Her heart hammered against ribs that felt rearranged. Everything hurts, but in a different way now. Like muscles after hard training rather than bones breaking. Connor approached slowly. He knelt down until his face was level with hers. "Can you understand me?" he asked. Eleanor nodded. The motion felt strange with her altered skull structure, but she managed it. "Can you speak?" She tried. What came out was half growl, half hiss. Not words, but she maintained enough awareness to know what she wanted to say. That had to count for something. "Remarkable," Connor said softly. He extended one hand toward her, palm down. "You maintained consciousness. Most first-time shifters lose themselves completely." Eleanor lowered her head until it touched his hand. The gesture felt natural despite her transformed state. Connor's fingers slid along what might have been fur or might have been small scales. The texture seemed to shift under his touch. "You are not broken," Connor said. "You are first." The word first resonated through Eleanor's altered consciousness. First, the first hybrid to survive, the first to merge both bloodlines, the first of something new. She pulled away from Connor's hand. Standing required concentration. Her legs did not bend quite like wolf legs or dragon legs. They fell somewhere in between. She managed to rise, swaying slightly. Connor stood as well. He remained close but did not crowd her. "Hold this form as long as you can," he instructed. "Learn how it feels. Memorize every sensation. You need to be able to recall this at will." Eleanor focused on her body's new configuration, the weight distribution, the strength in her limbs, the way her senses registered the world differently. Sounds came sharper. Scents layered in complex patterns. Heat signatures glowed faintly around Connor's body. Minutes passed. Eleanor pushed herself to maintain the transformation even as exhaustion crept through her muscles. She would not give in. She would not collapse. She had survived the emergence. She would prove she could control it. Connor watched her with unwavering attention. His expression revealed nothing, but Eleanor sensed approval in the set of his shoulders. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 15 minutes, Eleanor felt the transformation begin to reverse. Her body contracted, bones shifting back toward human form. The pain was less intense this time, more like pressure releasing than breaking. She ended up on her hands and knees, gasping. Sweat soaked her training clothes despite the freezing temperature. Connor crouched beside her again. "You held it longer than I expected," he said. Eleanor lifted her head. She met his amber eyes with her own. "I am not afraid anymore," she said. Her voice came out hoarse but clear. Connor's hand touched her shoulder. The gesture was brief, just a moment of contact, but it carried weight. "I know," he said. News of Eleanor's transformation reached the Wolf clans within a week. Henry Luxford had tried to keep it contained, but information had a way of spreading. By February, delegations from 3 separate wolf packs arrived at the fortress gates demanding Eleanor's return. Eleanor stood in Henry's council room while he met with the wolf representatives. She was not supposed to be present, but she had learned years ago how to position herself where she could hear without being seen. A narrow alcove behind a tapestry provided perfect acoustic access. "The girl belongs to her own kind," one of the wolf delegates argued. His accent marked him as from the Northern Territories. "She carries wolf blood. She is one of ours." "She carries dragon blood as well," Henry replied. His voice stayed level. "Which makes her our responsibility." "You stole her from a family in crisis," another voice said. This one Eleanor recognized. Liam Swales had been on her father's council before the betrayal. "Oscar Appleton was murdered. His wife was desperate. You took advantage." "We honored a legal contract," Henry said. Eleanor's parents understood exactly what they were agreeing to. "They could not have known she would become this," Liam pressed. "A hybrid is an abomination. She needs to be brought back to wolf territory and properly contained." Eleanor's hands clenched into fists. Abomination. The word stung more than it should have. "Eleanor Appleton is not property to be traded." A new voice entered the discussion. "Connor, she is a person with the right to choose her own path." "She is a child," Liam countered. "She is 15 years old and more disciplined than half your warriors." Connor shot back. "She has trained under Dragon Lord instruction for 9 years. She has earned the right to speak for herself." Silence followed this declaration. Eleanor could picture the expressions in the room. Henry would be calculating. The wolf delegates would be outraged. Connor would be standing absolutely still, daring anyone to contradict him. "Then bring her in," Liam said finally. "Let us hear what the girl has to say." Eleanor did not wait to be summoned. She stepped out from behind the tapestry and walked into the council room. Every head turned toward her. She kept her spine straight and her expression neutral. "I have been listening," she said. "Since this conversation concerns my future, I decided my presence was warranted." Henry's mouth twitched slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Connor showed no reaction at all. Liam Swales looked older than Eleanor remembered. Gray streaked his beard. Lines creased his forehead. He studied her with eyes that revealed nothing. "Eleanor Appleton," he said. "I knew your father. He was a good man who made hard choices." "He made the choice that kept me alive," Eleanor replied. "Did he know what you would become?" Liam asked. "Did he understand the Dragon Lords would turn you into a monster?" Eleanor felt heat build in her chest. Not anger exactly, something colder and more dangerous. "I am not a monster," she said. Each word came out precise and sharp. "I am the first of my kind. There is a difference." "You are an insult to both species," another wolf delegate said. "Dragons and wolves do not mix. Your existence violates natural law." "Natural law," Eleanor repeated. She walked closer to the table where the delegates sat. Natural law said my father should have abandoned his family when his pack betrayed him. Natural law said my mother should have let me starve rather than send me away. Natural law would have seen me dead at 6 years old. I spit on your natural law." Connor shifted position slightly. Eleanor sensed his attention sharpened. She had never spoken this directly before. 9 years of careful discipline and controlled responses evaporated in the face of being called an abomination. "You want me returned to wolf territory?" Eleanor continued. "Fine. Tell me what awaits me there. A pack that will accept a hybrid? A family that wants a dragon-blooded child? Or will you simply kill me quietly and pretend I never existed?" Liam's expression hardened. "We would provide protection." "I do not need your protection," Eleanor said. "I have trained with dragon lords. I can shift into forms you cannot imagine. I am stronger, faster, and more controlled than any wolf my age. What exactly would returning to your territory accomplish except making you feel like you won some political victory?" "This is not about politics," Liam insisted. "Everything is about politics," Eleanor shot back. "You want me returned because my existence embarrasses you. Because I prove that the old divisions between our species are artificial. Because I threaten the purity you have spent centuries protecting." The room fell silent. Eleanor's breathing came hard but even. She had said too much, revealed too much anger. But she would not take the words back. Henry Luxford stood. His movement drew every eye. "Eleanor has made her position clear," he said. "She chooses to remain in Dragon Lord territory. The contract her parents signed remains valid. Unless you wish to declare war over one individual, this discussion is concluded." The wolf delegates looked at each other. None of them spoke. War with the Dragon Lords would be costly. Everyone in the room knew it. Liam stood slowly. He gathered his papers with deliberate care. "This is not over," he said. "Other packs will hear about her. They will demand action." "Then they can send their own delegates," Henry replied. "The answer will remain the same." The wolves filed out. Eleanor watched them go, her heart still racing. When the door closed, she turned to face Henry and Connor. "I spoke out of turn," she said. "You spoke the truth," Henry corrected, "which is more valuable than political courtesy." Connor moved to stand beside her, closer than usual. His shoulder nearly touched hers. "I will not be exchanged again," Eleanor said quietly. Connor's hand found hers, his fingers threaded through her own. The contact was deliberate, intentional, and completely inappropriate for a council room. He did not let go. "Then stand beside me," he said. Eleanor looked up at him. Connor's amber eyes held something she had seen growing between them for years but never acknowledged openly. Not love exactly, something deeper than love. Recognition, understanding, choice. "Your father will object," Eleanor said. "My father," Henry said dryly, "is standing right here and can speak for himself." He looked between them with an expression that might have been exasperation or might have been approval. "Connor is correct. If Eleanor chooses to remain, she does so as an equal member of this clan, not as property, not as a curiosity, as one of us." Eleanor felt the words settle in her chest. One of us. After 9 years, after transformation, after choosing to stay when given the chance to leave, she finally had a place that was hers by choice rather than circumstance. Connor's thumb brushed across her knuckles. The gesture was small but carried significant weight. Eleanor squeezed his hand once, then released it. Some things needed time to develop properly. Some connections were worth building slowly. "Thank you," she said to both Henry and Connor. "Do not thank us yet," Henry replied. "The wolves were correct about one thing. Other packs will hear about you. We have just declared you valuable enough to defend, which makes you a target." "I can defend myself," Eleanor said. "I know," Henry agreed. "But you should not have to do it alone." Connor nodded once. The gesture felt like a promise. Spring arrived with complications. 3 more wolf packs sent delegations. 2 dragon clans from the Eastern Territories demanded explanations for harboring a hybrid. Eleanor spent more time in council rooms than training yards. She learned to navigate political conversations with the same precision Connor had taught her in combat. Every word mattered. Every gesture carried meaning. She discovered she was good at negotiation when she stopped trying to please everyone and focused instead on protecting what mattered. The breakthrough came in late April. A joint assembly was called, bringing together representatives from 5 wolf packs and 3 dragon clans. The meeting took place in neutral territory, an old trading post that had served both species for over a century. Eleanor stood before the assembled leaders. Connor stood 3 steps behind her, a silent statement of support. Henry Luxford had remained at the fortress, trusting Eleanor to represent Dragon Lord interests. "I understand why my existence troubles you," Eleanor began. Her voice carried across the meeting hall without strain. "I represent change, unknown possibilities, the collapse of divisions you have maintained for generations." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Eleanor waited for silence before continuing. "My parents sold me to save my life," she said. "My father was murdered by his own pack. My mother watched me starve because your political structures valued purity over survival. They made an impossible choice because it was the only choice left." She let the words sink in. Several wolf representatives shifted uncomfortably. "The Dragon Lords took me in when no wolf pack would have protected me," Eleanor continued. "They fed me, trained me, helped me understand what I am. They did not try to suppress my wolf nature or force me into pure dragon form. They taught me to integrate both." "You praise dragons while forgetting what you are," one wolf leader said. "You were born a wolf. That blood should matter." "It does matter," Eleanor agreed. "I shift into wolf form with the same ease any of you do. I understand pack dynamics. I carry my father's instincts. But I also breathe fire. I endure heat that would kill normal wolves. I think with dragon discipline while feeling with wolf passion. I am both, which makes me neither, which makes me first." A dragon representative stood. His scales shimmered faintly along his neck, marking him as high-ranking. "The dragon clans worry about bloodline dilution," he said. "Your existence suggests mixing is possible. Others might follow your example." "Others cannot follow my example," Eleanor replied. "I exist because of specific bloodline convergence that took 300 years to manifest. I am not a precedent. I am an anomaly. But I am also proof that cooperation between our species does not have to mean extinction." She moved closer to the assembly. Connor's presence at her back felt solid and reassuring. "I propose a treaty," Eleanor said. "Dragon Lords maintain guardianship of any future hybrids that emerge. Wolf packs agree not to hunt or prosecute individuals showing mixed traits. In exchange, I serve as liaison between our species. I negotiate disputes. I mediate conflicts. I become the bridge you have lacked for centuries." The proposal hung in the air. Eleanor watched faces calculate advantages and risks. "You ask us to legitimize your existence," a wolf leader said. "I ask you to acknowledge reality." Eleanor corrected. "I exist whether you recognize me or not. The question is whether my existence serves a purpose or simply causes ongoing conflict." Debate erupted. Eleanor stood quietly while arguments flew around her. She had made her offer. The rest was up to them. Connor moved to stand beside her. His hand briefly touched the small of her back, hidden from view of the assembly. The contact grounded her. "They will accept," he murmured. "Not today, but eventually." "How can you be certain?" Eleanor asked. "Because you gave them no other choice that does not end in war," Connor said. "And none of them want war with the Dragon Lords over one individual." He was right. After 2 hours of debate, the assembly agreed to a provisional treaty. Eleanor would serve as official liaison for 3 years. If she proved effective, the treaty would become permanent. Eleanor signed the document with steady hands. Her signature looked strange next to the wolf pack leaders and dragon clan representatives. Eleanor Appleton, first of her kind, dragon wolf liaison. The assembly dispersed. Eleanor remained in the meeting hall after everyone else left. Connor waited with her, giving her space to process. "I thought I would feel different," Eleanor said. "Now that it is official." "Different how?" Connor asked. "More complete, maybe. More certain." She turned to face him. "Instead, I just feel tired." Connor smiled. It was a rare expression on his face, genuine and unguarded. "That means you are human," he said. "Hybrid blood does not exempt you from exhaustion." Eleanor laughed. The sound surprised her. She could not remember the last time she had laughed freely. Connor's expression softened. He reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate and deliberate. Eleanor's breath caught. "I need to tell you something," Connor said. "I have waited years to say this properly." "Then say it," Eleanor replied. "I choose you," Connor said. "Not because of political advantage, not because you are unique. I choose you because you are brave and stubborn and you refuse to break no matter how hard the world pushes. I choose you because when I imagine my future, you are in it." Eleanor's throat tightened. She had known Connor's feelings matched her own, but hearing him voice them changed something fundamental. "I choose you too," she said. "But I need you to understand what that means. I will always be both species. I will always stand between worlds. Choosing me means accepting that division." "I am not choosing a dragon or a wolf," Connor said. "I am choosing Eleanor. Everything that comes with that is part of who you are." He leaned down and pressed his forehead against hers. The contact was not a kiss, but it carried more weight than any kiss could have. It was recognition, partnership, a promise made without words. They stood like that for a long moment while the setting sun cast orange light through the meeting hall windows. 2 weeks later, Eleanor returned to the Dragon Lord's fortress. Word had spread about the treaty. When she rode through the gates, people she had known for 9 years looked at her differently, not with suspicion anymore, with respect. Henry Luxford met her in the main courtyard. He studied her face with the same intensity he had shown when she was 6 years old. "You negotiated a good treaty," he said. "I negotiated survival," Eleanor corrected. "Good is relative." Henry smiled. It was the first genuine smile Eleanor had ever seen from him. "Your parents would be proud," he said. "Oscar and Shannon Appleton sent you away to save your life. Instead, you saved your own life and potentially changed the future for every hybrid that might follow." The mention of her parents hit Eleanor harder than she expected. She thought about her mother's shaking hands, her father's last instructions, the food they had chosen because they loved her too much to watch her starve. "I want to honor them," Eleanor said. "Publicly, they deserve recognition for the choice they made." "Then we will hold a ceremony," Henry agreed. "We will tell the story properly, not as a transaction but as a sacrifice made out of love." The ceremony took place 1 month later. Representatives from both wolf packs and dragon clans attended. Eleanor stood before the assembly and told the complete story. Her father's murder, her mother's desperation, the contract that saved her life. She spoke their names clearly. Oscar Appleton, Shannon Rowley Appleton, parents who made an impossible choice because survival mattered more than pride. When she finished, silence held for several heartbeats. Then one of the wolf representatives stood and bowed his head in recognition. Others followed. Within moments, the entire assembly honored Oscar and Shannon's sacrifice. Eleanor felt tears on her face but did not wipe them away. Some grief deserved public acknowledgement. Connor stood beside her throughout the ceremony. When it concluded, he took her hand in front of everyone. The gesture declared their bond official. No one objected. That night, Eleanor stood on the fortress walls and looked out over Dragon Lord territory. Connor joined her, bringing a blanket against the cool evening air. He draped it over her shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far I have come from being that 6-year-old child," Eleanor said. "How different everything turned out from what I expected." "Do you regret any of it?" Connor asked. Eleanor considered the question seriously. She thought about pain and training and transformation. She thought about learning to be something no one had been before. She thought about standing between two species and demanding they recognize her right to exist. "No," she said finally. "I do not regret surviving." Connor's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. Eleanor leaned into his warmth. They stood together watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Eleanor Appleton was no longer the child sold for food. She was no longer the frightened girl who believed her parents had abandoned her. She was no longer incomplete or divided or uncertain. She was the first dragon wolf, the bridge between species, the survivor who became sovereign not through conquest but through refusing to break. She had taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into foundation rather than ruin. She had honored her parents' sacrifice by becoming someone worth saving. She had chosen love through discipline rather than desperation. The future remains uncertain. Other hybrids might emerge. Political tensions would continue. But Eleanor would face those challenges the same way she had faced everything else. With both dragon control and wolf passion, with Connor beside her, with absolute certainty that she belonged to no one except herself. She was the first, and she would not be the last.